Hi, folks. Hope you're okay. It's good to be with you. I just want to talk about the importance of law and grace in the preaching of the gospel. I've been reading this book by Carl Trueman on Luther, Crossway. Now, before some of you get, oh, it's not Luther, Carl Trueman does not idolize Luther. He picks him up on the issue of what he said about the Jews. It's not like idolizing Luther. But this book, in the beginning of it, the first chapter, is really, really powerful because it talks about, the first couple of chapters, it talks about Luther believed in the importance of preaching law and grace. He believed that in the theology of the cross as opposed to the theology of glory. The theology of glory is the idea that you can be saved by doing good works. It's men's idea of salvation. The theology of cross is the foolishness of man. It is God's revelation of how we are saved, that Christ came to die for our sin. And the theology of the cross, you cannot come to know Christ unless you realize your own righteousness is filthy rags. I just got a think. Sorry about that. I'm just looking for the passage. Yeah, it says, "We are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags." Isaiah 64:6. So it's important that we preach the law because the law is used by the Holy Spirit to convict people of sin. And then it makes them realize how hopeless and helpless they are, and then they fall on the cross for salvation. But what we're doing today in the modern church is we're not preaching the law. We're not preaching the Ten Commandments. We're not preaching the commandments and the sinfulness of sin. And so people are not falling on the cross and being saved. They think they're saved, but they're not really saved because they've not really come to an end in themselves and rest solely on the cross of Christ for their salvation. So I would encourage you to read the book by Crossway, Carl Trueman. Read that book, and it will encourage you in the sharing of the gospel. And to remember that as a preacher, that you have to preach on sin as well as grace, law as well as grace. If you're preaching the gospel, it's not come to Jesus, he loves you. It's come to Jesus because he took the wrath that you deserve. He took your punishment upon himself. Isaiah 53, he was bruised for our iniquities, the chastisement of our peace was upon him. He took our punishment for our sin. And we're not preaching sin. And if we're not preaching sin, people will not understand grace. We're making the gospel wishy-washy, gooey. You want to listen to a good gospel understanding of the gospel, go on Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones' Recording Trust, and there you'll find an interview by Blackwell of Lakewell with Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones, and he explains the gospel. So my website is jasonburnspreacher.com, jasonburnspreacher.com, and you'll get some really good helps to preach, learn to preach, help you to preach, help you understand the gospel more. There's lots of good testimonies there. That's jasonburnspreacher.com. But start preaching the law as well as Christ. And you'll find that you get a lot of kickback, but you'll find it'll be effective, that people will begin to come to Christ because they know that they're a sinner. Because the Holy Spirit will use and convict people when you talk about the law. And then they'll flee to Christ for salvation. But they won't flee to him if they don't know that the sin is an undone. All right? Thank you for listening. God bless you.